it has a cumulative effect to show you that your life is just so much bigger and more beautiful than you give it credit for being, you know? And it takes the narrative of I'm not enough, I don't have enough, and just explodes it.
How do we become more resilient? I think that is such an important topic, especially today.
Yeah, it's obviously multi-part process, but for me, so the reason I wrote this book is I lost my job at Comedy Central, which had been my whole identity. Like, I had worked there a third of my life. If someone introduced me, they'd say, Tara Schuster, Comedy Central. Like, it was my married last name. And I had put, I can't even describe how much I had put my self-worth on that job. And so when I lost it, I started asking questions like, who am I if no one else is defining me? What is my internal status? Who exactly am I? And it really kind of made me sick. Like, I started having dissociative episodes because I had been neglected and psychologically abused as a child. And so the job was a stand-in for family. You know, I called my boss, I had two bosses. One was harsh dad and the other was loving dad. I had a work mom. You know, I'd tied so much to this job. So when I lost it, instead of saying, hey, let me take a minute and understand who I am without a job, I was just like, I need meaning now. Like, I got to figure out something now. And so the 2020 election was coming up, and I just Googled, how can I help in the election? You know, they said you can help register voters in Arizona. Packed up my car in like 48 hours, got the Vitamix, got a bag full of books that I never cracked open, got on the road to Arizona, and had the worst dissociative episode of my life.
Wow.
Just if you haven't had one, it feels like everything inside of you wants to come out and that your body is not your body. So I was driving and I could see my hands, you know, I could see my manicure, I could see my rings, but they felt like they were floating, like completely disattached to me. I was speeding. It was out of control and unsafe. And I finally decided to pull over. And it was like a bomb went off. I was like, oh my God, I need to pull over. I cannot hustle my way into healing. I can't hustle my way into being the person I want to be. I need to stop. And it just so happened that when I stopped, it was nighttime in the Mojave Desert. And so all the stars were out. And maybe it's because you can't see stars in LA, but it was like a star field. It was like I felt like I was just surrounded by all these stars. And I asked myself, can I be like that? Can I glow even when it's dark? And the reason I even had that question to begin with is because we are literally made of stars. You know, it's something I come back to, which is I can't be that bad of a person if the iron in my blood, you know, if it's literally from stars. Nobody says stars have moral failings. Stars aren't enough. Like, we don't say that. We say stars are awesome. And so I just wondered if I have that awesome, like, thing from the universe, if I have that in me, how can I pull it out? How can I get rid of whatever is dimming it? And how can I live a life that's more mine, you know, and is not a reaction to trauma? Because up until that point, my whole life was filling in holes for a traumatic childhood, and I wanted to make active decisions about who I was. And so that was really the beginning of finding resilience, was actually that one thought that these stars are in me. Something good and pure and whole is in me.
Wow. So powerful. And so that's where you got the title for the book.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
And I was reading it last night. I mean, it's funny. You're such a good writer.
Thank you.
And you cover so many different topics, from like body issues and acceptance that you yourself have clearly experienced. You know, the realization that your coworkers should not be considered your family.
Yeah.
You know, there's just a lot of really good stuff in there. But so you've mentioned your childhood a few times.
Yeah.
What happened there?
It was just a mess wreck disaster. I lived in the right neighborhood. I lived in Brentwood. My parents drove the right cars. I went to private school, but because of all that, nobody ever looked under the hood to see what was really happening, which was my parents didn't know how to take care of kids. And they didn't know how to get educated about taking care of kids. So my sister and I were essentially feral. Like, we were like showing up to school with like ratty hair, with like our tights falling off, but like the good school, you know? and, living in the right neighborhood, but I'm running away from home constantly in a canyon because the screaming, it was unbelievable screaming all of the time. I mean, one of the things I started to deal with in this book when I realized, oh, you just can't outrun trauma. As much as I don't want trauma to exist because it sounds like a cheesy word that like everybody's using therapy speak, I was really cynical about it. But I remembered back, when I was a little kid, I was going to New York with my mom and I was in a limo. I'm 5 years old and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in a limo. Like I am the classiest person who has ever existed. I'm like playing with the glasses, like like rolling on the floor. My mom had gotten me a faux fur black coat. I'm like, oh my God, everyone's gonna think I'm so chic in New York.
Mhm.
And best day of my life. I go sit down next to my mom and she says, I want you to look at these. I'm like, what are they? And they're cards. And she's like, these are the prostitutes your dad is sleeping with.
Mm.
And I'm too young to understand what that means. And so I kind of like back up off of it. And then she says, your father doesn't love you. And that I know is not true. So I say, no, like dad loves me. I know that. And she says, oh yeah, well, he wanted you aborted.
Jesus.
And it's like that kind of incident, like what I would think maybe a couple years ago was, well, it wasn't that bad. Like I wasn't like chained in the basement. I was just told that I was completely unwanted and,
That's pretty bad.
Yeah. And it took me a long time to realize, Lori Gottlieb talks about there is no hierarchy of pain. If you are suffering from something like that, that's just real and you have to deal with it. And so a lot of this book has been going back to those traumas and healing what they made me believe about myself. That incident, looking back, I left my childhood thinking I was worthless. That was the number one takeaway. Otherwise, why did people treat me this way? And so I can't go back in time and fix that moment. I wish I could. I wish I could protect that version of myself. But what I really can do is take responsibility for what it made me believe, all the coping strategies I created to deal with, because that's like one of 100. That's one incident in a whole childhood of bad incidences. So it's the idea that like, people say time heals all wounds. And I'm like, that is false. It gives them wrinkles. It makes them harder to address. It makes them rule your life. Like if you're not dealing with something, it's dealing with you. I promise. So a lot of this book is, I'm not going to live that way anymore. I'm going to live intentionally. I'm going to live in a way I want. And I'm not going to let these old coping mechanisms, beliefs that don't hold up, because I was always worthwhile. So it was never true that I was worthless.
Right.
Do
you still have a relationship with your mom?
No. I haven't spoken to her in 15 years. I have forgiven her, because a lot of the work I've done is around self-compassion. And the more self-compassion I feel, the more compassion I feel generally for others. And now my thought is, oh my God, how much was my mom suffering? If she thought that was a way to treat a child, what did she go through? And even in that exact incident, what she wanted was my love, to isolate me and to have my love. And then that's really sad that all she wanted was love, and she did everything to make sure she didn't get it. So now it's my relationship with all this has changed. I don't blame them. I'm just sad. I'm really sad that that's how they lived.
Yeah. Was she an alcoholic?
No, I think she, I don't know exactly what it was, but it was some sort of mental health thing. But I am thinking of reaching out to her. I'm thinking of, she's still alive. She can't hurt me. I have forgiven her. Might it be worth me giving her another chance? A chance to show up? Like when I die, when she dies, will I feel better that I had just given her another chance? And so that's something I'm working on, because that boundary was so hard for so long. It did its job. I don't feel threatened anymore. So that's totally something I'm considering like currently.
Yeah, it's crazy because I was relating when you were talking about your mom sharing with you things about her marriage that she shouldn't have shared with you, having been a child at the time. And that's something that I relate to because my mom used to share stuff with me about her marriage that she should not have shared with me. And I loved my mom. I have a very close relationship with my mom. But um, where I think my mom was different, she never would have said anything like "your dad doesn't love you," which to me seems like it would stem from a much more malevolent place.
Yeah.
You know, like just a much more wounded place.
My mom was not happy, and she
Yeah.
was not happy in that marriage. And rather than protect us, they just exposed us to, I mean, the house I grew up in was a construction site. Like the walls were completely open so you could see the plywood, the insulation, the ceilings were undone. It was a dangerous place to grow up. And so I never learned that safety was a thing. I didn't even know that parents are supposed to keep their kids safe until I was camping alone in Zion. And I, like, first night, essentially blew up my little like stove. I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm getting takeout every night. This is gonna be fine. I go to a restaurant and there's a dad talking to his two sons, and he says, tomorrow we're going canyoneering. You know, I've never done it and it's gonna be scary at times, but I hired an instructor who's done it hundreds of times. So you're gonna be safe. Just remember, you're gonna be safe. I'm there, the instructor's there. And it was like my mind was blown. I was like, wait a minute. Parents are supposed to tell their kids they're safe and take actions to make them safe. I had never considered for one instant that I shouldn't be 10 out of 10 anxious, totally startled when a trash can lid was put on. You know,
Wow.
those things. So I was always activated until I learned, wait a minute, safety's a thing, and I can build it for myself. And, you know, I do it in the book through journaling, which doesn't even sound like why would that be applicable? But it's a place that's my own, where I can see my emotions are not going to kill me. It's a place where I can change my own story and remind myself that I matter. And it's a physical item that I can protect and hide and is my own. And so, you know, these things are so big. Like, how do you build safety in a world that is clearly unsafe? You know, today, obviously, wildly unsafe. I think we all have to find a way to find some measure of safety within ourselves if we're going to be ourselves, you know, because it's really hard to do anything. It's hard to dream. It's hard to be in a relationship. I mean, if you don't feel safe at a base level.
And as a parent, that's like, I mean, arguably your sole job.
A friend told
Right?
my best friend, who's an early childhood development specialist, I called her after I heard that from the dad. And I was like, wait. Did your parents tell you you were safe? And like, do you tell your kids that they're safe? And she said, yes, that's the primary job of a parent.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And you came out, I mean, like as such an accomplished, successful, articulate, lucid person. So many people, I think, go through that degree of trauma and of course worse.
Yeah.
And they come out unable to deal with the real world.
Yeah.
They become drug addicts. They
Yes.
become homeless.
Yes.
They're unable to hold jobs, let alone like write books. So it's like, it is a testament to the resilience that you've been able to cultivate.
I feel lucky in that I think I always had something in me that wanted health the whole time. I think there was just a little something that was like, I want a different life. And as I paid more and more attention to that voice, I realized, oh, that's what resiliency is. It's, yes, I'm getting knocked down all these times and I'm getting right back up and trying to learn from each incident. And I feel lucky. I feel like I was gifted that, you know, that it wasn't something I thought about. It was just in me for me to cultivate.
I love that. So walk me through the journey, because as far as I understand it, I haven't read it, but your first book was more about gratitude.
It was more about the rituals to become stable. Because so in my early 20s, the only thing I heard in my head was a diss track. Like, you're ugly, you're worthless, you're not lovable, no one loves you, no one cares. All of the time. There was never a moment where I wasn't in some sort of anxiety that was like manifesting in my body. Like, I lived in Manhattan and I'd be walking in Union Square, like rubbing like the part right above my heart because it felt like there was just a knot there. It was a miserable way to live. And At the same time, I was working at Comedy Central in this like fancy job and rising the ranks really quickly. But those people didn't know that I was imploding, that I was the girl openly weeping next to you on the subway. That's what I was doing outside of work. And it might have kept going that way, me hustling for my worth at work, going home and like smoking weed and drinking and making bad decisions with boys, just like burning myself down. Except on my 25th birthday, I drunk dialed my therapist and threatened to hurt myself. And when I didn't know I did that. How I figured it out was she left all of these voicemails that night. And she was like this super chill European woman who always had like a teacup and a little handkerchief around her neck. And the worry in her voice, I had never heard that before. Her worry made me worried. And that morning I decided I didn't have parents. No parents are coming. Nobody's going to help me. I have to reparent myself. I must, or I'm not going to have much more of a life to live. And since I was really good at work, I was like, well, what does a millennial do? I'll open a Google Doc. Opened a Google Doc, started putting the questions I had, like, what are values? What are principles? What are vegetables? Like, genuinely, what are they? Still have this question. Maybe you can tell me later.
I can help you out.
And I just kept writing the questions I had, looking for the answers, not so much through self-help, but through memoirs, through the stories of adults I admired, like Nora Ephron or Steve Martin. I pretended they were my parents and really tried to learn from them. And 5 years later, I had a 600-page Google Doc, felt like a completely different person. And that's when I decided to write that book. It was never my intention to write a book like this. I was going to be a Hollywood executive. I was going to work in comedy. But I just felt in my soul that somebody else must have been through this. And I would really like them to have a book, like an offering. And even a book to younger me, to like hold my own hand through this healing. So the first book is all rituals, like low cost to free, easy to implement 2-day rituals that can bring you stability. So a gratitude practice comes up, or discovering exercising my human body. Like the first time I ever like really moved was I was 26. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. This feels great. Like, wow, So they're all like little things, but what I hope to do is to talk about them in a funny way or a more relatable way than a lot of, self-help books. Or when people say like, feel joy, I'm like, cool. What are steps 1 through 5? Like, that's useless. That's a useless thing to say to somebody who's openly weeping on the subway.
Wow, powerful. So you found stability through the book, but I guess it was built on
shaky ground.
Shaky ground.
Yes, because I had never gone back. I had put myself on a good enough plateau. I had this job which made me feel like I wasn't a weirdo anymore. Like I could point to and be like, I made it. See, I'm fancy. I'm not this neglected little girl. It was subbing in for so much of my life. And it wasn't until I was laid off and that identity was taken from me, where I was like, oh no, I have a lot more work to do. And ironically, it was because I was stable. I was healthy enough for these pieces in me to come up, to be dealt with. Because I think, like self-protectively, I think I had just been suppressing everything for a later date. And the later date came, and it was in the pandemic without a job. And it was not fun. I would say, like,
yeah,
this is not fun.
It sounds like you were still kind of medicating.
Oh, yeah. With
your work. Yeah, with your job.
Oh, truly everything about me was that job, was that I had made it, and that nobody could think I was weird or that less than. Because how I began with all this is I thought everyone would judge me for having a weird childhood. I thought everybody's ashamed of me. Nobody's going to who's going to want to date me? Who's going to want to be my friend if they know how bad it was? And so I realized I need to heal that part of myself that's so desperate for acceptance and belonging. And in this journey, I have found so much belonging. and none of it has come from work.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
No, totally. But I feel like a lot of people, like not everybody gets to be like a C-level network executive, right? But if you're not, I think there are people out there that if they're not medicating with work, they're medicating with sex, they're medicating
Yes.
with alcohol, drugs, substances, and the like,
Yes.
medicating with maybe orthorexia, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
being too restrictive with their food, you know?
Yes. I think that's a big problem that isn't even talked about enough, because now in the work I do, it's so much about self-care. And the question I'll get so often is, well, what if I fall off my self-care rituals? What if I don't journal? What if I don't meditate? What if I've messed up this week? It's like, hold on. We're not hating ourselves into healing. We're not like gonna be our own worst critic about trying to feel good. It's okay. You messed up. Fine. But it's been very interesting to see how people will take anything as a way to beat themselves up.
So what are some ways that you found helpful to cultivate resilience? You mentioned journaling.
Yeah, journaling, if there's one thing to take away, it's journaling. It's scientifically proven to help your mental health. If you, like at a minimum, what they've found is 3 times a week for 15 minutes actually does elevate your mood, helps with physical ailments as well. I journal every day, and not from a science place at all. Like I read Julia Cameron's The Artist Way and was like, whoa, I'm allowed to be an artist? I had no idea that was even a possibility. And in that book, she says to write 3 pages every morning of like word vomit, just emptying, clearing the channel. So that's what I do. So journaling is very important. And my gratitude practice has radically shifted. Now I call it grief and gratitude. So I used to write 10 things I was grateful for every day. Now I write 5 things I'm grateful for, 5 things I'm grieving.
Wow.
Because they're not separate. And, this is not what I'm really against is toxic positivity. Like,
yeah,
there's a silver lining here. It's like, no, they just both exist. And if you can't see one of them, you actually can't see reality. So that's how I kind of reality check, find my gratitude, acknowledge the grief. I'm no longer trying to like shove it down somewhere. Those have been 2 of my most important practices. And then in this book, I write about meditation, which who wants to hear another thing about meditation?
Another person advocating for meditation. Yeah.
So I try to do it. I had a horrible experience trying to meditate. I thought I was going crazy. I did a silent meditation retreat. I did it extreme. I was like, I'm going to win meditating. So
what is that called? The silent meditation, or like Vipassana?
Oh, mine is actually Jewish based, and it's through an organization called Or Halev. So I don't know the other terms for it.
That's cool.
It was.
I'm a member of the tribe. I'm not like a practicing Jew or anything, but
okay.
Yeah.
So this is all rooted in Jewish spirituality. And actually, rabbis used to teach meditation, like back in the day. It's not like a new aged LA thing. It's like, oh, this is a part of the tradition.
Yeah, every tradition. I think it is important for people to realize, though, to know that there doesn't have to be a religious connotation to meditation.
Absolutely. Right. That mindfulness can also be a totally secular activity. And
I think most of the time it probably is a secular.
It's training your brain.
Yeah.
It's training your mind to give, in my view, it's not to like find joy or find peace. That I've never found in meditation. It's just given me more room to feel so that I'm not overrun by one emotion. I'm not overrun by my sadness, my overwhelm. I can like pretty quickly see, oh, I have a lot of space in me. I can feel all these things at once. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. But the way I talk about it in the book is I'm so turned off by how people talk about meditation. They're like, find your seat. I'm like, do you mean my butt? Like, is that actually what you mean? They're like, find your anchor. It's usually your breath. I'm like, I barely know how to breathe. Like, that's impossible for me. So like, thank you for insisting on that for every meditation I've ever done. So I try to break it down. When people are like, clear your mind, you would have to be dead. There's like no way anybody can completely clear their mind. So I hope I talk about it in a way that's at least 25% less annoying than how other people talk about it.
You do. Well, I mean, as I mentioned, you have such a wit in the way that in the way that you write. So then what is well, I want to talk about the journaling
Yeah.
and then the gratitude practice. I want to like break this all down.
Sure.
I guess let's start with the journaling. What does that actually look like?
Yeah. So what it looks like in the beginning, because I was not a morning person at all, was physically putting the journal next to my nightstand and not being allowed to get out of bed until I had journaled. Like I was like needed a lot of discipline in the beginning. Now what it looks like is I have a whole routine of how I get out of bed, then the shades, bringing that back up, then I brush my teeth, then I go to the journal in a very specific place. It's a sacred time for me. So I really try to make it intentional early in the morning. So I go to this buffer zone and it's basically I'm writing 3 pages of just everything within me. And sometimes if I've come to a difficult decision to make, I'll ask myself about it the night before, write that in the journal, sleep on it, and it's super weird. Most times I've got some answer for myself the next
Hmm.
morning because I think what it is like I say it's like DMing with your soul, right? You're like getting the sneaky stuff that's inside of you that wants to come out, but that maybe you're afraid of. Maybe you're not ready to hear. Maybe, there's a million reasons why you're not telling yourself the truth. But journaling really forces you. A lot of people, myself included, lie to their journals, like particularly around dating. Like, he's so great. I think there's gonna be a big future. Meanwhile, you're like, I know this isn't right. Like you want it to be true. But if you lie to yourself enough on paper, you can see it.
Hmm.
You're just like, wow, I've been lying for 2 months. This is like, as you look back, there's a problem here. So that's what the journaling is never like, I went and saw Max and it was a great hang. It's like, it's not a document of what you did, it's of what you feel.
Hmm. Well, how should somebody who's naive to the process even get started?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the most daunting task, right? Like as
Yes.
a writer, like when you're looking at that blank page,
Like, how do I
yeah,
start?
like what do you start with?
Yeah. Well, in this next book, I give people an emotion wheel because I think we have lost the vocabulary to talk about what's happening inside of us. Like, I don't know about you, but for me, basically the only words I have to describe myself are good, bad, stressed, tired.
Hmm.
My human experience, my one time on planet Earth is reduced to those 4 words. And so I learned about emotion wheels, which they just show you other emotions. Like, are you depressed or are you grieving? Are you anxious or are you furious at somebody? And once you can kind of chart that, you get to know yourself a lot better. And also, you give yourself the chance to make a different choice, to react differently. So, the very first journaling prompt I have for anybody is, how do you feel? What's inside? How does your body feel? What emotions? Just describing what your experience is and practicing. I once was really sad, like somber sad, on the verge of tears. But I was like, but am I sad? So I looked at my emotion wheel, looking around, and the word grateful stuck out to me. And I was like, wait, these are tears of gratitude. I'm not upset at all. In fact, hallelujah, this is a great moment. But I would have completely skipped that moment altogether had I not really taken a moment to dive a little deeper.
Hmm.
And, you don't have to get it from my book. It's free. Google emotion wheel. And there are some really good ones out there. So it's really taking stock, what I
Hmm.
would say would be the first thing.
Yeah, like an inventory.
Yeah.
And you mentioned 3 times a week, 15 minutes is like enough
Yeah,
to get started.
yes, absolutely. I am really mean to my readers and I'm like every day, 20 minutes. But, if you're just starting 3 times a week, 15 to 20 minutes is sort of the standard
It's-
where it would be helpful.
And so how does it help? Like you're just kind of like just unpacking everything, getting
Yeah.
a feeling of like release.
Well, first off, we walk around our days not ourselves. Like, how much are we hiding? How much are we not telling? How much are we not telling ourselves, much less the people around us? So it kind of like cracks you open a little bit. I'd say that's the first thing. And then I think when you're narrating your own life, your own experience, you find your agency.
Hmm.
You start to see, I probably have more control over this than I thought I did. And the third thing is you see none of this is going to kill you. None, like, this is all fine. You're going to figure this out. Even the really unfine things, for me, the worst things I've ever been through, I've already been through them. Like, I survived. Cool. Now it's time to see what did they make me believe about myself? If I look back at that limo memory, how did I feel then? How do I feel about that little girl now? What beliefs does it bring up? It's a way to really dig much deeper.
And at the very least, that's probably the cheapest form of therapy.
It's absolutely, and people say that it's like essentially free therapy with the person who knows you best, yourself.
Yeah, because it's like so often we're living like outside of ourselves, right?
Yes.
We're like in the mornings, we're focused on, I gotta drink my water, gotta go drink my coffee, gotta go to the bathroom, gotta answer these emails, gotta respond to these text messages, gotta get on the dating apps.
Yeah.
Gotta do all the things, right? It's like we barely take a moment these days, especially because like with smartphones, right? Like at the most sudden onset of boredom, we no longer allow our minds to like wander or even introspect, right? We're like on our phones scrolling Instagram.
It's so sad. And actually, our friend Ellen, she made me promise not to keep my cell phone in my bedroom. And it's a promise I've kept for like 3 years. My cell phone is in the living room on my sofa so that I'm not tempted first thing in the morning to divert, like immediate distraction, from myself. And the days where I'm like, you know what, I don't really kind of want to scroll Instagram. I'm like, let me grab that. Those days suck. Like now that I can see the difference, and with a lot of these rituals that I've been developing, the coolest thing is when you don't do it, you notice. When you don't journal, that day is going to be a little worse. And so it's actually a great motivator because you see, this is not theoretical. This is not I'm not coming on high to like tell someone how to live. It's just, this with practice will make you feel a little better and you'll notice when you don't do it.
Do you hold on to the books or do you like archive them or?
So I have every journal that I've written in for the past 10 years, and it is a gift because it turns you into a time traveler. I can go back and see, well, how was I feeling when I got that promotion? Did it actually change my life and give me meaning and gratitude? No, pretty quickly I can see like I didn't even care. I got the thing and moved on. I can see stuff, my relationship with my dad, how has that evolved? It's incredibly helpful. And also it makes you proud of yourself, to be able to look back 5 years ago and whatever position you were in then, most likely you're in a different one now. And a lot of us are really proud with the more work we do. So I think it's like a great idea to keep your journals. I know people get cagey about it because they're like, well, what if someone reads them? And for that, I really don't have a good answer because I'm single and live like, this is my space. So who is going to read them? The one thing I say is like, hide them and don't tell people you're journaling. This is for you. Like nobody needs to know that you have a journal except for yourself.
Yeah. The other person who I'm close with in my life that is a big advocate for journaling, probably the only other person that I know that does it, is Matt Nathanson. Do you know Matt?
No.
He's a very talented, platinum-selling singer-songwriter.
Oh, cool.
Touring everywhere. He's actually on tour right now. But yeah, he's a big advocate for it. He's just a brilliant dude. But yeah, I totally I can totally see the value in it. And is there value in doing it on paper versus like on a computer?
Yes. I don't believe in it on a computer because the physical act of it's your mind and your body have to unite to tell this story. It's so much more visceral if you're doing it, really seeing it in your own handwriting than on a screen. And I don't retain information from screens. It's like almost impossible for me. So when sometimes I've tried to journal using a computer. It doesn't work also because I don't want like that blue light. I don't want a screen like early, and anything I can do to spend less time on a screen, oh my God, I'm there. 100%. So
do you do it before or after coffee? Do you drink coffee?
Yes, I do. I love coffee. Do you drink coffee?
I drink coffee, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I love coffee.
I think I might have seen on your gram something about like, yeah, coffee's good for you. Like
Yeah.
when that study came out that it was like, oh, coffee's not the horrible thing that everybody is like
Yeah.
decrying. Yeah.
I think there's value to occasionally going off coffee, just to like resensitize your brain
Yeah.
to its effects. And, I definitely probably drink it at suboptimal times. Like I wake up and I drink it like, so I mean, some days I'm better than others, but most days I wake up and I'm drinking it like 20 minutes after I wake up or
Yeah.
something like that. I think there's probably value to delaying it, delaying it
That's
a little bit.
interesting. I'm somewhere where you are because I get up, blinds, brush my teeth, go to the kitchen, click the Nespresso machine, which I know I'm not a real coffee drinker. I'm drinking capsule coffee.
No judgments.
I appreciate that. Go to the couch and with my coffee and my journal, get to work. And it is such a divine moment because I have the dopest mugs. I use like a great almond coconut milk. My notebook is so beautiful. It's just this like, you build a moment of delight early in the day. I guarantee you that day is going to go better than it might have.
Yeah. Having that like morning ritual is a
Yeah.
really important, I think, way to start the day.
Yeah. And it sounds annoying. It
Yeah.
sounds like, stop telling me to be a morning person. I'm like, yeah, but it works.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry.
That's why I feel like whatever smidgen of benefit I might get by like delaying the caffeine, it probably isn't worth the fact that it would disrupt my morning
Yeah.
routine. Like there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will walk to a local, most days I walk to a local coffee shop. So I'm getting
Oh.
like the bright light in my eyes and I'm
Oh,
getting
nice.
like the steps in and I'm supporting the local, it's not like it's a Starbucks or whatever. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a more kind of local spot. And then I walk back with it. And but then like lately I've been obsessed with these like I found these it's like canned cold brew,
Ooh.
which I know it's not ideal if it's in a can, but it's from Groundwork and it's just really good coffee.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And easy.
Easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super tasty. So I'll do like either or. But yes, that morning routine, it's nice.
It's something I look forward to. Like,
Yeah.
no matter how bad the day was previous, I know tomorrow I'm going to have at least 20 minutes to myself that are just totally my own. I'll light a candle. I'll burn some incense. I'm
Nice.
just trying to make it as nice as I can because who knows what's going to happen next.
Exactly. Are you like what time do you wake up typically?
6:40.
6:40.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you set an alarm? It's pretty specific.
I do set an alarm, but I do also just wake up naturally that way. But I'm paranoid that I'm not going to. Thus the alarm. But this is because I did a sleep study at UCLA, like went and slept in the hospital and I went through like a whole journey to
Wow.
arrive at 6:40.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kudos to you. Okay, so journaling. I'm sold.
Oh my God, yay.
Yeah, I think it sounds awesome. I mean, I'm not known to be the most disciplined person when it comes to integrating like new, but I'll try. I'm down to try. I'm
I'd
super
love
down
to
to try.
talk to
I mean,
you
you've
about it.
convinced me.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
If that's the one thing I do, I'm happy. I'm a happy customer.
I love that. Okay, so the gratitude practice. This is super
Yeah.
interesting.
So I am very cynical by nature. I think everything's woo-woo and sucks until proven otherwise. And so the way I found out about gratitude is a difficult start to this whole thing, which was I was in really bad shape. This was right after I had threatened to hurt myself. And a friend invited me to come to her family's compound in Maine. And I was like, okay, free trip, whatever, I'll go. And I get there, full-on panic attack about stupid boys. Plus, like, who even knows why I was so upset? But I'm like heaving, crying, bad, red face. And this girl who was like she's such a wasp that her family came to America on the Arabella. What is the Arabella, you ask? It is the second ship after the Mayflower.
No way.
Yes, that brought John Winthrop to America. It's like as blue blood as you could possibly get. She went to Harvard before becoming a professional ballerina, before just deciding to become a doctor.
Wow.
So she's just like, I know I'm privileged. That's next level privileged. And she looks at me and my like snotty red face and she's like, have you tried a gratitude practice? Every F-bomb like boiled in my blood. I was like, what do I have to be grateful for? Like, are you kidding me? We are at your family's estate. Like, how dare you? And because I was so spiteful of her and wanted to prove her wrong, I started a gratitude practice because I thought I'm just going to show her. Like, she's living in a different reality. So I started writing, and the things I wrote at that time were, you're not grateful for anything. You're such a liar. This is so stupid. I hate this. And then it became, oh, I'm grateful for a glass of water next to my bed. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my sister. And I was like, oh man, I have so much to be grateful for. I am telling myself one story that is so limited of all the things that have happened to me, of all the negativity. That's the only story and the only thing I'm seeing. And gratitude just opens the aperture right up because you are forced to see your life also includes joy, also includes laughter, also includes beautiful things. And it's beautiful that you woke up again today. Like a miracle most of us take for granted every single day. You woke up. Wow. And since I've been doing that, so I've been doing that for like 10-ish years, I think I've written something like 40,000 things I'm grateful for.
Wow.
It has an effect. It has a cumulative effect to show you that your life is just so much bigger and more beautiful than you give it credit for being, you know? And it takes the narrative of I'm not enough, I don't have enough, and just explodes it.
Wow.
It's like, oh, you have plenty.
Yeah, I mean, it shakes you out of that woe is me victim mindset.
Yes, which I'll admit, I have totally been there, and I didn't want to be that person. Because, you know, you meet that person and you're like, I don't want to hang out with them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm unattracted to that. And I didn't want to be somebody who let their trauma and their problems dictate their life and their personality. So in the end, I have to credit this very privileged wasp for giving me something that has really changed my life. She was right.
Have you told her? Have you reached out since?
Yeah. And I think she's not pleased with how I describe her in the book. She's like,
Well, you've changed all the names.
Changed the names, so you don't know who she is, but I don't know that she loved being called out in quite that way. But, you know, she really helped me. She told me about positive psychology. She told me about the gratitude list. And like the journaling and the gratitude list more than anything else have completely changed my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you do the gratitude list like on top of the journaling, or do you do them at separate points
the
of the
end?
day?
So it's 3 pages of freehand. And then at the very end, 10 things I'm grateful for. But it's changed now to at night, I'm starting to do my gratitude and grief process. It's just a good way to go to bed is like seeing the full picture and being okay with the full picture. I've found it very soothing.
Wow. Do you find yourself writing like similar things every day, or do you try to find new things to be grateful for? Like how much like mental work are you putting into this process?
After 10 years, I needed to like wake myself up again. That's why I've now changed it to the grief, because I was just mechanically, I noticed I was like, I'm not paying any attention to what I'm writing right now. And so something has to change. And so right now I'm like experimenting, and doing it at night is a change. So all these little rituals I have, I'm currently like just experimenting a little with to keep them vibrant and novel in some way to me.
And does it help to write them down?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, before I go to bed, I ask myself 3 questions, which are, and this is not written, just in my mind. Was I kind to someone today? Was someone kind to me? Did I live the life I wanted to? You know, and just thinking about that, like it forces me actually to go through my day, which I never did before. Like I never had a practice where I just looked at what even happened today. How did I spend my time? When was I alive? When was I just a robot? You know, and so I've noticed that the more and more I ask myself at night, I pay attention in the day. And with the kindness, it's like, and that's a goal now. So now I look like, be kind. I'm not like the world's kindest person, like at all. It's something I've definitely had to cultivate. But I think these questions, you know, and I keep it, these are all simple questions. How do I feel? Were you kind? I'm not digging that deep, have really been helpful. So that's something I would say that somewhere in the gratitude practice is thinking about kindness, thinking about the fullness of your day. And I've found that to be a really helpful tool as well.
It probably just makes you more aware of those acts. like as you do them, it sends off like a little flag.
Totally. Yeah. And if for 5 nights in a row, you're like, today sucked and I hated it and this is not how I want to spend my life, red flag.
Yeah.
What are you doing then when what's got to change? Because, I mean, everything I do could also just be titled to take responsibility for your life. The end, like, you're not necessarily to blame, but it is now yours. It's now your responsibility no matter what happened. And so I'm always just trying to find joyful ways of owning my life, ways that make me feel optimistic and still see reality, still see all the problems, but come out of it with a little bit of joy. Just a modicum of like, things aren't that bad. They're not the worst ever.
No, things are pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got this beautiful book. What about self-care? Other forms of self-care?
Yeah.
Like healthy diet. You talk about exercise. You hired this trainer. What was his name? Like Vlad? Yeah.
And that's his real name and he hasn't read the book.
That's his real name.
Yeah.
He's the
Vlad.
one guy whose name you didn't change.
No, Vlad is amazing.
Well, because you do shower him with like how hot he was in the book.
So hot. So it was the pandemic, single, living in my apartment, decide I want abs for like 1 minute in my life. Like, and not just abs, Britney Spears level, slave for you, snake around my neck. I want those abs. And so
God, Britney in her prime.
I'm man, woman, child. We all know. We all know.
We all wanted her.
Yeah, exactly. And so I thought, okay, I don't have a job. All I'm really doing is trauma work. I deserve something fun. And on Instagram, I just saw this hot guy with his shirt off and all these photos. And I was just like, him. I want to talk to him. And so I reached out and he became my trainer during the pandemic. And the goal was to get me abs. Like it was an explicit, like, here are your macros, here's the exercises, we're gonna get you abs. And I like went at it hard. Anything I do, I go at it too hard in an overwhelming way where then I just have to like back off, And so I was eating very, very little, like so little that when I would wake up at night because I had just been dreaming of bread. Like it was insane. I would go stand in front of the refrigerator and be like, I need to eat something to go back to sleep. But then like, no, I need the abs. So I'm just going to have a completely horrible, non-restorative sleep right now. And so towards the end, I was in the best shape of my life, which is the best looking shape of my life. But I just couldn't hack it. I was like, I don't even care about these abs. This is too hard. And Vlad was like, well, you're a woman and it's really hard for women to get abs because of all the protection around all your reproductive organs. I was like, Vlad, why did you not tell me this from day one? And he had, of course, the best answer, which is, well, who am I to tell you what you can and can't do and what you should or should not want? I was like, oh.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, I was like, fine, Vlad. You're hot and you're sensitive.
Damn. How many calories were you tracking calories and stuff?
Yeah, I don't exactly remember. Maybe it was different for days I was doing cardio versus days I was doing like weights and stuff. But it was very little food. It was, I mean, I'd never do that again. It made my life worse.
Yeah. Yeah. People do all these kinds of like extreme, whether it's like prolonged fasting or these really strict. Now, granted, like there are people in the fitness world that have very specific goals and power to them. I don't judge. And I think that like if you get abs, if you want to get abs, but it should always be with informed consent. And it should be done in a way, ideally, that's like sustainable and healthy and doesn't compromise your relationship with food.
I mean, can you imagine hanging out with me at that time?
No.
Miserable. Like nobody, I mean, fortunately we were all in masks and I couldn't really hang out with anyone anyway, but I didn't like hanging out with myself.
And the irony is you ended up with the abs, but no one to probably show them with, right? Like you couldn't go out.
This is my deepest regret of the pandemic. I was in the best shape of my life. Like I was the hottest to myself that I'd ever been and nobody could see it. There was like absolutely no way to flaunt it. But I think I had a pretty good pandemic if that was my issue.
Yeah, fair. So have you stabilized to a more consistent, sustainable, like exercise routine?
Yeah, I work out 6 days a week, mostly for anxiety. It really is the cure for me to get out all of my pent up nervousness. And I cycle between running, Pilates, and weights, and a hike. I try to get a hike in there too. And recently, just to force myself to do it, I've been going to Barry's just to like, oh, I have a class I have to show up. I was falling off a little bit, but like just having a class to show up at is enough accountability for me. Like, I don't want to get that late fee. I'll be there.
I mean, power to you. I'm not a class guy, but I can see the value. So exercise and anxiety, like how does that, like,
Yeah.
what's that relationship
Well,
like?
I mentioned I had not moved my human body until like the age of 26, 27.
Hmm.
I was allergic to exercising. I was famously an indoor kid, like a theater geek indoor kid. I got one report card once. It was a class called cardio, and it said Tara hides behind the treadmills. It was the only C I have ever gotten
Wow.
was in PE. And I think part of it was I was really ashamed of my body. I thought I was chubby, not good looking. None of the boys liked me. I mean, granted, I grew up in LA, so it was very difficult.
LA is a weird place.
Yeah, very weird, even at a young age. And so I think I took that shame and turned it into a form of pride that I was better than everyone else, that I was great at theater and super smart and like, who cares? And that was a really big disservice. I'd also say, did you have to do the presidential fitness awards?
No.
Okay.
Was that a high school thing?
Middle school. I am sure that people listening have had to do the Presidential Fitness Awards, which were you had to do a series of like physical feats with no training, no prep. It was like run a mile right now in your uniform.
Oh, God.
And I would come in like dead last. Like the kind of last where the coach was just like, you don't have to finish, it's fine. Like just come in, So I felt ashamed of myself. I felt like I physically couldn't do it. And it wasn't until one of my best friends, Julia, which is a name I did not change, she was just she looks calm all the time. She looks like really chill, really calm. And I just asked her, why don't you look like you want to jump through a window, like ever? Like, what is happening with you? And she said, when I get stressed out, I go for a run. I was like, please, please, that does not work. But again, I tend to try things. When I reject something, then I know I need to try it because there's some resistance in me. There's something weird happening. And so I decided to start running.
Was that always the case?
Yes.
Or is that something you've had to cultivate?
No, it's always been the case that if something really triggers me in some way and like this hateful part of me that thinks she knows better comes out, I'm like, okay, you need to chill and we need to see what this is because I don't understand that about myself, but I do see the signs of it. I don't know why. And so I started running, terrible choices like listening to Feist or like singer-songwriter sad songs, and thinking that's going to pump me up.
And you don't know Matt Nathanson?
No, I don't. So I'm going to listen after.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, because that's totally my vibe.
Your vibe, yeah.
Yeah. And so I just started with really little goals like run to that stop sign, run 2 blocks. I mean, the most minuscule goal of all time because I wanted to build my pride, and so that I wouldn't always feel bad about it. And, how many years later, like 5, 7 years later, I run almost every day.
Wow.
It's one of my favorite, it's one of my passions. Like far from not liking it, I feel bad when I don't run. I just love how sweaty you get. Like you feel your body is working, and that is such a reminder of everything I have to be grateful for. And it's a thing that I can't focus on anything else but running when I'm running. So it's almost got like a meditative quality for me. So that was really how I discovered. I wish someone had said when I was 12, hey, you want to feel better? Sweat. Just sweat. You'll be great. Or like when I was diagnosed with depression and I got Cymbalta, you know what else they could have said? Hey, have you ever been on a run? Have you ever like moved a little bit? And, I wish that was the first line of defense, and it so often is not. And it's so practical, free, easy to find something. You don't have to run, but there's something you can do to sweat. And you'd probably know more than I do, but I believe there's a lot of science behind moving, sweating, all these things have a great impact.
A ton, a ton. It really is medicine. Movement
Yeah.
really is medicine for the brain. It's good for brain health. It's good for cognitive function. It's good for mental health, as you yourself have discovered.
Yeah.
It's really incredible. And it's such a shame that it's not considered by more to be a first line defense.
Absolutely. And that kids are forced into PE classes that they hate. Like that, I have a big problem with my whole education was that I was so shamed at every single point about physical education that I never thought of it as something that could help me. I thought of it as a punishment. Like, now you have to do push-ups when I've never done a push-up before. Like, physical movement should not be used as a punishment because then that's what you associate it with instead of like a liberating life force within you, your own ability, which taps into your own ability to find joy.
Yeah.
You know?
Amen. Yeah, I hated, well, I guess I can't really say that I hated PE class because I would always hang out with the girls and shoot the shit. But it was like the only thing that there was to do during PE class was like play sports, like play ball things. I was gonna say play with balls. Doesn't sound right. But that's like all that there was to do. And I just was never interested. I was never good at those kinds of things. And so I just kind of like wrote off physical activity as being something that like I just wasn't meant for.
Totally. And I think there are just so many people who relate to that. And then it's like, I just want to find all of them and be like, hey, the system was broken. I'm so sorry. But probably there's something you do enjoy doing and it will be very helpful for you.
Yeah, 100%. So you found running, weights.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy?
Weights. Yeah, I really enjoy. I mean, it's just cool when you can do more and more and more. And now I can do 50 push-ups a day.
Wow.
And it is a thing about myself that I just want to brag about and like shout from the rooftops is that and I can do one pull-up.
I read about that.
Yes.
That's incredible.
But don't ask me what kind of pull-up, and I don't want to know if I'm actually doing a chin-up. Just let me have it.
Yeah, it's yours. That's an accomplishment. Do you like the gym setting, or do you prefer more like to be like by yourself?
I used to love Equinox and just being in a vibrant environment, but now because of the pandemic, my building just has a small gym in it. So I use that. But recently, like I said, I've been wanting to be more around people, so I've started going to classes.
I just don't, the aspect of classes that I don't like. I don't like having instructors. First of all, they're usually too loud.
Oh, it's way too loud. It's painfully loud. I wear earplugs.
Smart. I mean, protecting your hearing, that's a big thing.
So important.
Hearing loss is actually a newly discovered risk factor for dementia, for cognitive decline.
Really?
Yeah, you really got to protect your hearing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not something that like, I mean, I'm seeing now more and more younger people like concerned and like taking a protective stance with regard to their hearing, you know, because like people go to like concerts and like festivals and things like that. And it's just like they forget the fact that like you can easily damage your hearing. And once it goes, you never get it back.
Well, a workout class is like peak music, peak instructor screaming, you know, it's like the loudest environment. And then in a little room, doors shut.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm the one wearing the like giant earplugs. Like,
that's cute. You probably look really funny, but you're the smartest one in there.
I just don't want to lose my hearing. Yeah. How bad would that be?
Terrible. Especially if music is one of your favorite. I mean, music is one of my favorite things.
Me too.
And movies. So are you now on, what now? I mean, you're obviously promoting the book, but do you aspire to go back into TV? Are you just, are you just now full-time evangelizing like what you've learned in this process?
If I go back to corporate America, something has gone seriously wrong. I'm in trouble. If that's what I do, check in on me. I love writing, is totally my passion. It's the thing I care the most about. And what I've learned through this whole experience was that there were so many more people like me and that we could all go on a journey together. So even like my Instagram is really a community. They know each other and comment to each other. And I feel like it's a non-toxic slice of the internet. And if that's what I could like contribute is just like one little dash of this place doesn't suck.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to. So I think it's like continuing to write. I speak. I'm a very depressing motivational speaker. First thing I say is like, this is going to be hard. It's going to take a long time, possibly and probably your whole life. But let's start. How about we just start?
I feel like you'd be really good. And because your background, you were at Comedy Central.
Yeah.
Were you there because you aspired to be in comedy ever?
A little bit. It was like a shadow. It was like I was one step away from the thing I really wanted to do because I didn't believe in myself.
I could see that.
Yeah.
You could do it.
Thanks.
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of doing it.
Yeah. Like if I could just do what I do now, which is write, teach workshops, talk to people who are on this journey, that would be the best life. I'm already so happy with it and have no desire to go into Hollywood again yet.
Do you feel like throughout this process you've acquired resilience?
Much more so. My floor is so much higher than it was. Because I had a depressive episode 3 weeks ago, which I didn't even notice. I was talking to my doctor and she's like, how are you? I'm like, well, I'm not eating and I don't want to see anybody and I'm really tired and I can't as I'm saying it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm in a depressive episode. But now I know what to do. Now I have tools, a path. I can pretty quickly swing out of it. And it's not the level, I'm not calling my therapist completely melting down, thinking of ending my life. I've dealt with this before. It's going to be okay. Let me just do the things I know I need to do because I've worked on a depression plan when not depressed.
Yeah.
You cannot get in a depressive episode, that is not the time to start making your plans for how you deal with depression. It's like learning how to swim as you drowned. Can't work. So just these routines and rituals, they sound cheesy to me when I'm like, here's your 5-step plan out of depression, but it's life-saving.
Yeah, the time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining.
And people don't do that. They don't go to therapy when they're happy. They go when their marriage is falling apart. And my thing is, you do this now because what it is preventing those worst case scenarios. It will help you in those worst case scenarios. But if you're doing things from the depth of despair, you're not thinking clearly, you don't have dreams. It's I really, really advocate that people, especially with depression, try to deal with it when they're at their best.
And also it's important not to pathologize the normal ebb and flow of human emotion.
My therapist, I was really stressed out about this book launch. And I was like, do you think this is connected to something from my childhood? What do you think's coming up for me? And she's like, I think you're stressed like any human would be stressed when they had a major thing happening. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is just normal. This is just what we all go through. But I felt proud. I was like, cool. This wasn't some weird trauma triggered thing. It was just, I'm alive. Things are stressful. The end.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.
We thought it would be cholesterol level. We thought it would be blood pressure. It wasn't. It was how satisfied you were in your connections with other people. We didn't believe it at first, but then other studies began to find the same thing.